Good morning. Okay, I want to go ahead and I want you to go ahead and we only need both books, but turn in your work textbook to page 75, and it's going to be this page that you see on the screen. You might see some funny little places like right here, and the lines look funny because I had to erase the answers because we're going to do this page together. This is a chart about progressivism in society. Now we're gonna be able to do this chart together as we read. Now you may come across some of the answers as I'm reading. And if you do, you can go ahead and write those in, and then we'll go back and check it and make sure. So now that you have that open, kind of keep that close by with your pencil or pen, and then open your reader book to page 164. Now, on 164, we're going to read about progressivism in society and how the progressivism had affected society and ways that they thought they were going to be able to fix it. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions regarding last lesson's time that we read. So in the 1800s, what did Americans believe about the Bible? They believed it was God's Word. Now, that was in the 1800s, and that changed as progressivism came in, correct? Because they started learning and believing more in science. Now, who were the most important leaders in America before the progressive era? Who were the most important, most looked up to people? Pastors were. Who replaced the pastors for many Americans? Scientists did. Social scientists, because they believed in science. So they replaced that for many people. Now, what was the main thing that science had not given to progressives as they tried to solve these problems? They couldn't find it in science. Wisdom. They wanted wisdom, and they thought all these things that they were going to fix and ideas they were going to try was going to give them wisdom, and it did not. From where do we get true wisdom? Only from God. Only from God. Okay, so let's look at page 164, and I'm going to be reading, okay? And I'd like for you to follow along, but I also would like for you to, if you come across one of the answers on here, you can go ahead and put that on there. All right, look at page 164. There's a picture of a park. Those are, I don't know if that's something you climb on or if it's a swing. I think there's some both there, but they thought parks would help keep children out of trouble. So now we're going to go ahead and read. So let's go ahead and begin reading on 164. The progressives wanted to make the places where people lived cleaner and less crowded. They wanted to be sure drinking water was clean. They wanted to end poverty. They wanted to forbid alcohol because of the problems that it caused. Christians especially supported banning alcohol. Many of the goals of the progressives were good. Wanting to end drunkenness is good. And some of their plans for fixing problems were good. For example, they wanted the police to learn skills like fingerprinting. And some of their plans didn't really work, but they didn't do much harm either. For example, they thought having more city parks would reduce crime. Play would prevent children from getting into trouble. City playgrounds are nice, and they're a good thing, but they don't solve the problem of crime. Many progressives didn't look in the Bible for wisdom, and as a result, they didn't see that sin was the main cause of the problems. A new playground can't solve a sin problem. Also, the progressives were too convinced of their own ideas. They forgot they were sinners. They forgot they could do wrong. They forgot they too could make mistakes. They didn't trust the wisdom of others. They especially didn't value the wisdom found in traditions. Some of their ideas broke traditions that really worked. Sadly, untested ideas of the progressives often did not work. And this is not in your book, but just to say, a lot of people say, well, that's old-fashioned. And old-fashioned, we need to progress. We need to do something that's more like now. But that's not true because tradition works. And if it works, why are you going to try to fix what's not broken? The progressives wanted to change the way prisoners were treated. They said that prisoners shouldn't be punished. Instead, prisons should help change the prisoner. Well, Prisons should help the prisoner become a better person, and it's good to help prisoners change. In fact, Christians have often tried to help prisoners change, but the idea that prisons are not for punishment is dangerous. Punishment needs to fit the crime. The progressives also sought to change the way children were treated at work. Many states passed laws about children who worked. The laws said that children had to reach a certain age before they could work. These laws did not allow children to do dangerous work. They also set limits on how long children could work each day. The states passed laws that required children to attend school. Many people were hurt at work. Many of the machines at this time were dangerous. A machine could mangle an arm or a leg. The injury could make a person unable to work. Progressives wanted businesses to pay hurt workers. They encouraged employers to buy accident insurance so they would have the money to pay the workers. And there's a picture there on page 166 of some children working in a factory. Can you imagine working? I mean, that place looks dirty and grimy, and I bet it smells bad. And can you imagine having to work in there for hours and hours and hours for very, very little pay? In fact, you probably never saw your pay because you probably took it home to your mom or dad. Look at page 167. Progressives also wanted to change education. In the past, high schools trained students for a specific trade. Now they train students to go to college. Progressives thought experts in education needed to run the schools. An expert is someone who knows much about the specific part of life. Progressives didn't think parents and communities should run schools. They also thought all the schools should teach all the same things. Progressives thought public education could solve other problems. They thought immigration was a major problem. People from other countries lived differently than other Americans. Too many immigrants could change the culture in America. Progressives wanted the children of immigrants to be taught in public schools, and the public schools could train children with American values. The progressives didn't want private schools. They didn't want religious schools. Those schools might not teach what the progressives wanted to be taught. And would you say today that probably things are taught that progressives wouldn't want taught? Like you get to learn an education from God's perspective using scripture and using the Bible. And generally progressives don't want that because that goes against what they think. And let's go back to the topic on the factories where people work, especially children. There was one particular factory called, what was the name of that factory? I had it right here in front of me. Now I don't see it. It was called the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. It was in New York. And in March of 1911, the owners of that factory locked all the doors in the evening when they went home. So their workers couldn't go home, and they would make them stay there and work through the night. And there was a fire that broke out, and the people could not get out. And it was 150. Most of those were women and children that died in that fire. And there were several others that happened too, but that was one of the main things that had happened. So really bad things that went on. Okay, let's see if we can think about what we just read, and let's see if we can fill in some of these blanks here. Okay, so the left side here are changes that progressives wanted. So they wanted to make the places where people lived blank and less blank. Now this is on the top, the answer to this is at the top of page 164. It's the very first sentence. Progressives wanted to make the places where people lived cleaner and less crowded. Well, I got to write see if I can write my word in here. Whoop. Whoa, what happened here? No, this is not going to work. Go to my text. Okay. Woo. Well, I'm trying to fix this. Okay, so our first word here is cleaner. Well, it's not going to let me type it in there. I don't know why. It did earlier. Well, it won't let me type it. I apologize. I was going to do it with you. Okay, so this would be cleaner and this would be crowded. So they wanted to make them cleaner and less crowded. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure why. 2D text. Here we go. Okay. And then less crowded. Okay. There we go. All right. And they wanted clean blank. Okay, we're on the page 164. They wanted clean. What do you think? They wanted clean drinking water. The progressives did. That's a good thing to want, right? All of these are good things to want. Not bad at all, are they? So, what the right side is are the benefits and the problems. So benefits would be the things that were good and the problems the things that were bad. So making the places cleaner where the people lived and less crowded made people healthier. So that was a benefit. So the progressives wanted clean drinking water, so that made people what? Healthier, right? Clean drinking water would make people healthier. Okay. All right, and then down here, progressives wanted to end, what did they want to end? So at the very top of page 164, they wanted to end poverty. You know what poverty is? Poverty is when people are extremely poor and they don't have money to even live normally. Now, they wanted to end poverty. So the benefits, sometimes that made a better life for the poor. So these are good things here. Cleaner, less crowded where they live, so they're healthier. Good drinking water makes them healthier. End poverty, which helps the poor. Okay, what did they want to forbid? They wanted to forbid. That means, no way, Jose, you're not getting it. What was it? Do you remember? It's still at the top of page 164. They wanted to forbid alcohol. Forbid means you ain't getting it. No way, Jose. That lessened problems caused by alcohol. So that had a good benefit to go with it, right? All right, they wanted police to learn skills such as what? What was one of the skills they wanted policemen to learn? They wanted to let them learn how to fingerprint. So the benefit was that made them better able to capture criminals because they could fingerprint them and then say, yeah, we've got your fingerprint already. We've already gotten you before. All right, let's see here. Progressives wanted more blank to prevent children from getting into blank. They wanted more city parks to prevent children from getting into trouble. Now, benefit or problem? Now, is that a bad thing to want city parks? No, but it did not solve the problem of what? It didn't solve the problem of crime. They still had crime because people are bad. All right. The progressives wanted to change the way blank were treated. Who was it they wanted to change the way they were treated? Do you remember? Prisoners. They wanted to change the way prisoners were treated. They didn't really want them to be punished. They wanted them to learn how to do right. And that's not a bad thing to want, but they're there for a reason, right? Now, so the benefit of the problem was blank to help prisoners change. So that is a good thing to want the prisoners to change, right? I mean, we all, especially as Christians, we should always want people to change and be good, okay? But it was blank to think that prisons were not for punishment. Was dangerous to think that they weren't for punishment. It's dangerous to think that, because then you start thinking, well, then nobody has to get in trouble for anything. That's why it's dangerous. Now, it needed to fit the blank with the crime. Needed to fit the punishment. The punishment needed to fit the crime. If they had stolen or if they had killed someone or whatever, it needs to fit the crime, right? And it's dangerous to think not, because that would not be justice. Progressives sought to change the way blank were treated at blank. They sought to change the way, oh, sorry, we've already done that one. Children, they wanted to change the way that children were treated at what? Where did most children go? At work. So, many state laws passed about blank who worked. Children who worked. Laws requiring children to attend what? What did the laws say the children had to attend? Something that you love. School. They had to go to school now. All right, the progressives wanted employers to buy blank insurance. Do you remember the name of that insurance? For when their workers got hurt? Accident insurance. That way, when their workers did get hurt on the job, they could still pay their workers. Like now, if someone gets hurt on the job, then your employer has to pay for that. The progressives wanted to blank education. What did they want to do? Change education. High school students trained to go to, what did they want high school students to train to go to? College. And immigrant children were sent to, well, I didn't erase that answer, did I? Immigrant children were sent to public schools. High school students trained to go to college. Okay, good. Now that's going to be a really good page for you to keep close by so that when it gets time to study for your test, you can use this page. Now, you have one last assignment to do for today's lesson, and it's a study guide page. I'd like for you to do page 76 in your work text, okay? Use your book if you need to, okay? And I'm going to grade this page. All right, that's all for today.